Boston Bruins hockey is back as the team's prospects will hit the ice today in Buffalo. We're going to talk about who to watch at that tournament, as well as take a look at what was said yesterday at the golf tournament, including that there will be a new Boston Bruins captain this season. All that and more on a brand new episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans? Can you feel it? Hockey is in the air, and our Boston Bruins will be on the ice today in Buffalo with some of the young guns taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins prospects at the Challenge Tournament in Buffalo. Thank you so much for joining me today on Locked On Boston Bruins. It is Friday, September 15th, and this episode is brought to you by FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more right now. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed by visiting FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Again, thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your day. On Monday, we will be back to 5 episodes a week because this is the Locked On Podcast Network. We're all about your favorite team every single day. So please do open up your podcast app, go to YouTube, search up Locked On Boston Bruins, and hit that subscribe button and become an everydayer this season. If you're on social media, you can find the podcast at Locked NHL Bruins, and you can find me, my dad jokes and hockey thoughts, at Ian C. McLaren. Like I mentioned off the top, the Prospects Challenge is kicking off today in Buffalo. And for those of you who don't know what this is all about, the Boston Bruins have a bunch of prospects, younger guys, down in Buffalo for a few games beginning today against the Pittsburgh Penguins at 3:30 p.m. They'll play Montreal Canadiens on Saturday at 3:30 p.m. and then the New Jersey Devils on Monday at 10 a.m. Now, there's a few players that I'll be keeping an eye on. Obviously, some that stand out. You have Mason Lohrei on the back end. I'm excited to see how he is able to perform against other teams' prospects. Frederick Brunet, Jackson Edward, Ryan Mast, Mike Callahan, among the other defensemen that I'm interested to see. Up front, obviously, Fabian Lysell will be a center of attention, as will Brett Harrison, Matt Poitras, certainly John Farinacci, who was just brought over from the Arizona Coyotes. He didn't sign with them. Georgii Merkulov, Luke Toporowski for sure, but I think the guy that I'm most interested in watching is John Beecher because he has a real chance to make the team. We can talk about Poitras. I think he's still a bit young and needs some time. You know, again, the NHL AHL agreement is unfortunate. It'd be really nice to see him in the AHL this season, but I believe he'll likely be back in the OHL back here in Guelph. Harrison has a year on him. He's a year older, so you'd expect that he might be a bit closer. But when we're talking about centers, it's Beecher who really jumps out. He's 22 years old. He has one season of pro hockey under his belt, and he has a real chance to crack the lineup as the team's fourth line center. And to that end, he really needs to step up here at the Prospects Challenge. Bessie jumping in, making an appearance on the podcast today. Providence Bruins head coach Ryan Muganel said Beecher's growth for the Providence Bruins was huge last season. He struggled a bit to begin the year. Bit of an identity issue early on, Muganel said, but in the second half, he was Providence's go-to guy for a lot of situations. His skating ability separates him from most of his peers, down in the AHL at least. His ability to hang on to the puck and get in and be the first to the puck is something that he did really well. He was willing to play a physical brand of hockey. And, when your guys are in the AHL, you have to have some patience, especially for a bigger player to figure that out. And according to Muganel, John did an amazing job at that. He added, quote, "Thinking the right way is always going to be something that we preach to our players, and it's tough. John's one of those guys that really struggled early on. He came from a great program at Michigan, certainly had a great pedigree. You realize pretty quickly that it's a really good league, the AHL. Really good players in the AHL, and once he figured that out, what he could and couldn't do, John's growth was fantastic," end quote. As for Beecher himself, he said, coming in last year, he was a bit wide-eyed, staring around. This year, different. He has a better idea of what he has to do now that he's here and what it's going to take to make the team. He put in the work over the summer. There's certainly a spot open for him on the fourth line with Thomas Nosek going. They brought in Patrick Brown. They have some other options from the AHL team, Mark McLaughlin, Georgii Merkulov perhaps, but I think Beecher is best suited for this fourth line role. And he does have some offensive upside, but he's a strong, physical guy who grew this past season, 9 goals, 14 assists in 61 games. Not all world numbers, but he became a dependable all-situation player for Providence last season, and that's the kind of thing that will get you on the Bruins roster this season. There's an opening there on the fourth line center. I really believe that Beecher has a chance to grab it. Now, again, when you're talking about centers, Harrison has a lot of upside, Poitras perhaps even more, but when you look at the lineup right now, it's who are those guys going to break out? I don't want to say it'll be similar to what happened with Jack Studnicka, but they're just unless Poitras is going to step up and take the second line center role and you put Zacha back on the wing, it's going to be hard to see him making the team as a night. He just turned 19 a few months ago. I think he'll come back to Guelph, dominate at the OHL level. He could even challenge for the OHL scoring title. Harrison probably needs that full year in Providence. Beecher is just that much more ahead of them, and I think he's the guy I'll be watching most. Keeping an eye on Lysell, Merkulov, Lohrei. Merkulov as well, I think, has a chance to crack the Bruins roster. Lysell, Lohrei, I'd like to see them back in Providence this year, lighten things up, ready to step up, perhaps in the event of injury this season or full-time beginning in 2024, 2025. I'm not quite sure if these games will be streamed. It would be nice, of course, if we can, but we'll have a full recap of what happens at the Prospects Challenge coming up on Monday's episode. In terms of what Ryan Muganel wants to see this weekend in Buffalo, knocking off the rust a little bit. They want to see competitive spirit, figure out what players' brands are for the Bruins. And he's excited to see Lohrei, Merkulov, Lysell, Beecher, Toporowski. These are all guys who could light it up this coming weekend. Talk about the Bruins. Overall prospect pipeline not being very strong, but there are some pieces there, and we can see them on display here this weekend at the Prospects Challenge in Buffalo. Now, on Thursday, the Bruins had their annual golf tournament. Some really interesting things said by head coach Jim Montgomery, as well as impending unrestricted free agent Jake DeBrusk, and we're going to touch on a couple of those topics coming up here after the break. The NFL season is upon us, and you have a chance to win all season long with our friends at FanDuel. Right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. So just pick one team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every victory. So you put some money down on the Patriots to win the Super Bowl. Every time they win, you'll get a bonus bet to use on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. All you have to do is visit fanduel.com/lockedon to start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's fanduel.com/lockedon. Put some money down on a Super Bowl winner, and you'll get bonus bets all season long every time that team wins in the regular season. FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Locked On and the NFL. Thank you so much once again for making Locked On Boston Bruins part of your day every single day. Free and available on your favorite podcast app, on YouTube. Please do smash that subscribe button and become an everyday listener this season. Coming up on Monday, we'll be back to 5 episodes a week. Be sure to bring you all the latest from the Prospects Challenge and updates on the jersey reveal that's coming up this weekend, which could include the captain announcement as well. Speaking yesterday at the team's annual golf tournament, head coach Jim Montgomery confirmed that the team is trending in the right direction towards having someone be the captain this season. They've had internal conversation. Decisions will be made. He wasn't sure if there's a timeline on that yet, but it could coincide with the revealing of the team's home, away, and alternate jerseys for the centennial season. Obviously, they have some leadership that has left the team in Patrice Bergeron, David Krejci, even Nick Foligno to a certain extent. Everybody that's been around for a few years has watched those players, especially Bergie, and there's a lot of players that have worn the spoke to be for a long time that care about the culture and how they compete and how they carry themselves. Montgomery said that the Bruins' next captain must embrace his own style of leadership while making sure he remains committed to holding everyone around the team accountable. The captain is the go-between between the players, the coaches. He's got to be comfortable communicating with everyone, including the media, being able to be there every day as a source, the pulse of the team, the leader of the team. And there's a few candidates. We talked about this a few weeks ago. Brad Marchand jumps off the page as the obvious candidate, being the longest tenured Bruin. He is the lone player remaining from the Cup era that's been with the team. Obviously, Milan Lucic has come back. He will be a leader in the room for sure. Marchand learned from Zdeno Chara. He's learned from Patrice Bergeron. He's been around for a while and really remodeled himself after a fairly sketchy beginning to his career with supplemental discipline and the like. Now, if the Bruins want to usher in the next era, they could perhaps give the C to Charlie McAvoy. I've been going back and forth as to what the right call would be. I don't think there's a wrong call here. If you go with Marchand or McAvoy, you could either honor Marchand's impact on the organization, and he's still playing at a high level. He is getting up there in age and likely would only don the C for, let's say, 3-4 seasons. Who knows how much he has left in the tank after the double hip surgery. But I think he's going to come in, fly in this season, and have a much better start now that he is fully healthy and will prove that he's still an elite winger. So I think that would be kind of the natural handoff from Bergeron, his best friend, a guy he learned from and who helped him become the player that he is today. In terms of David Pastrnak, I think he is a leader on this team, but I'd like him to maybe have an A and focus on scoring so there's no distractions in terms of having to face the media and things like that. Let Pasta cook and let Marchand or McAvoy take on that role. I think McAvoy will be a captain at some point. It's just a matter of whether or not they want to anoint Marchand, and then he'll hand things off in a few years. But there will be a captain, and we could find that out as early as tomorrow. And if there is an announcement over the weekend, I'll be sure to jump on YouTube and post a quick reaction video there. So another reason to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Montgomery also said the Bruins will soon be announcing a new assistant coach. That's after John Gruden left over the offseason to coach the Toronto Marlies. I really wish they had scooped up Marc Savard before he was hired by the Flames, but there should be an announcement possibly next week as to who will step in and be an assistant coach on Jim Montgomery's staff. So that's what we learned from Jim Montgomery. There will be a new captain. Obviously, big shoes to fill with Patrice Bergeron having stepped away, but that's the situation there. And they're also really close to an announcement on a new assistant coach. Montgomery added, he's comfortable with Charlie Coyle and Pavel Zacha being the top two centers coming into the season. They both showed what they're able to do in games 3 and 4 against Florida, playing 19 to 20 minutes a night. Obviously, it's a small sample size. They won't be playing that much, but they are up to the task. And, that's something that they're going to have to continue to bring on a nightly basis. He also added there's a lot of jobs that are open. There's going to be a lot of competition at training camp. And we talked about that last week with Danton Heinen jumping in on a PTO, Alex Chiasson. There's Jesper Boqvist in the mix, Jacob Lauko, AJ Greer, Patrick Brown, Milan Lucic. And so exciting to see how training camp will shake out. And we are, 9-10 days away from the Bruins' first preseason game, which will take place on September 24th against the New York Rangers. We're going to finish off today's podcast by addressing Jake DeBrusk's contract status and what he's saying about entering this training camp as an impending unrestricted free agent. We'll get to that here coming up after this break. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace Case. The Jace Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you peace of mind so that you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure you have the medication on hand. And Jace Medical is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Do not get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using code LOCKEDON at checkout at jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com using promo code LOCKEDON. All right, let's wrap up today's podcast by briefly discussing Jake DeBrusk's contract status. He said yesterday that there is not really anything new regarding a contract extension as he gets ready for his 7th season with the Bruins. 26-year-old entering the final year of the 2-year contract he signed on trade deadline day a couple years ago. when he had that public trade request in the mix. It was believed at the time that might help facilitate a trade, but he's played through it. And if he can play up to his 30-goal potential this season, then they can get great value on that deal. He said he's approaching it by getting ready for game one, getting in his game. When it comes to contract talks, it's one of those things where you need two sides to tango. Whatever happens, happens. It's not really his main focus. He said, obviously, it's a big year for the team in general, and he knows that if he's doing his part with production and certain things, it will obviously help the team. Goes hand in hand. He's just ready to get the season started. He's excited for it, and now it's just about staying healthy. He, of course, had 27 goals in 64 games last season, missing 18 due to injuries suffered at the Winter Classic. There's been some ups and downs for DeBrusk over the years in terms of physical health, mental health, COVID lockdowns, trade requests, trade rumors. He's learned a lot about himself in that time. And he thinks last year was kind of him becoming himself in a sense, knowing that he still has more to give. He's worked hard this offseason. He's ready to go, and he's excited to get back out there. And I think it is going to be a nice year for Jake DeBrusk. I traded for him in my salary cap keeper league, and I'm really hoping for a big year out of him. Now, DeBrusk being an Edmonton native, interesting that he said he only met Milan Lucic once when he was playing for Edmonton at a dinner because David Pastrnak is good friends with him. So I guess they had a meal together. He called him a really funny guy, a big, intimidating guy. And they've talked at the rink a couple days ago. He's really excited to be back, and the fans are too. Again, I don't know if Lucic will be a mainstay in the lineup night in and night out, but the energy that he brings, the leadership that he brings, it will be a nice. We talk about, them losing that leadership in Bergeron, Krejci. Getting Lucic back will certainly help to fill that leadership vacuum, will help to instill in some of these younger guys the value of putting on that spoke to be, what it means. He had it, went away. Now he's got it back. He's so pumped to be back, and he will help these guys just really appreciate the opportunity before them, and maybe even fill some of that role that Nick Foligno left in the bottom six and bringing some scoring to the lineup as well. We'll see if that actually transpires. All right, so that's pretty much it for today's episode, my friends. Very exciting that Bruins prospects will be on the ice this afternoon in Buffalo. On Monday's episode, we'll recap that weekend action, begin to take a look at training camp, which will begin next week, and get ready for that first exhibition game on September 24th. Please do subscribe if you haven't already. Become an everyday listener. It's going to be a great season here on Locked On Boston Bruins, and I'm super pumped to have hockey back today and the NHL roster beginning to take shape next week. I hope you all have had a great week. Enjoy your weekend. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And we'll talk to you again here on Monday's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day.